Hello there, and welcome once more to my little corner of YouTube. Now, before we begin, I'd just like to highlight this poll that we did recently where I was asking for the next book to be read. Now, as you can see, A. Van Vogt Slan just pipped everyone to the post, so that's the very next one I'll be reading. Unfortunately, during the intervening week while I was waiting for the votes to drop in, I bit the bullet and decided to read one of them anyway, hoping that it might be the one that won. And it wasn't. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Today we're going to be looking at this one, which is The Night of Puudly. I think that's how you pronounce it. By Clifford D. Simak. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that. What I wasn't aware of at the time, when I started reading this, obviously, is that this is actually a collection of short stories by the author. Now, I was waylaid initially because the blurb on the back of the book suggests that it's just one story. But what it's actually doing is just referencing the very first story, the titular story of the collection, which gives the book its name. Now, what is your personal opinion on short stories? Do you like them? Do you prefer just self-contained novels, or do you like sprawling epics that, carry across on various other books? I personally dally with all of these different things, but I do love the short story form. We can get some really interesting ideas that just really punch right into your noggin without too much superficial or extraneous information getting in the way. Now, before I get to the various stories contained in this book, let's have a little look at the cover. Now, as many of you know, I am a sucker for a good book cover, and this is no exception. I was initially drawn in by that floating eyeball. What the hell is it doing up there? And we've also got this pleasing symmetry at the bottom. A gentleman perhaps gazing at his own reflection, but a reflection that has no face. It calls to mind the work of René Magritte, of course. Similar style, similar use of surrealism, and it really got me by the doodads. So I'm going to very briefly look at the copy that I've got here. I've featured it on a previous book haul episode, but we'll just do it very quickly here. This edition is from 1968. There's various other copyrights here, so this suggests that these short stories were previously published in a magazine. In fact, it's given here as Galaxy Publishing Corporation, so I think it was probably a science fiction magazine. If you know which one, please let me know. Otherwise, this book is in splendid condition. Very nice indeed. There's a slight bevel to the spine. I mean, it's been read, obviously. It's nicely creased. But anyway, let's get into the middle of this and sniff the hell out of it. I've done it before, but, these things change over time. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's creosote. It's wood. It's a telegraph pole, basically. That's what this is. Okay, anyway, there we are. That's the book. So what I'm going to do is just very briefly talk about each story without giving away spoilers. And I'm going to focus on one of them in particular that's my particular favourite. So, yes, the very first one, the story that gives the book cover its name is The Night of the Puudly. Now, in a nutshell, this basically is about one man hunting a beast or some kind of creature that's been brought from another world. So there's some kind of zoological trade in exotic animals, and he's brought this one to Earth. And it's a very, very dangerous creature. It can read minds, it can evade capture very easily. And this thing can very easily start replicating itself, and before long the whole Earth will be in peril. Now, the main character has done a very interesting thing here in order to try and capture this, or try and kill this beast. And it's also referenced on the front cover there. So I'm not going to say any more than that, but there's something interesting going on there. And it also bears heavily on the way the main character perceives this mission that he's on. He doesn't fully understand where he is or what he's doing. So it's probably given you a bit too much there. But anyway, there was that one. The next one's called The Crying Jag, of all things. Now, this is about an alien that turns up on the doorstep of a gentleman who's a janitor working at a local asylum. And on the weekends, he likes to get completely shit-faced and drink lots of spirits and whatnot. Anyway, this alien just turns up on his doorstep and they start having a conversation. It turns out that this alien, just come out of the blue, the first alien to ever appear on Earth, so it would seem, absolutely loves hearing horrible stories or tales of misery and misfortune. For this alien, it's like imbibing alcohol. So there's a kind of parity between these two characters, and something interesting plays out along these lines, but I won't say any more than that. Interesting. Okay, the next story is called Instalment Plan, and for this one we find ourselves on a distant world and a ship landing. Something goes a little wrong at the beginning and it almost crashes, but all is well, and the craft is piloted or populated by one human and an assortment of humanoid robots who are in service to this human. They're on this planet because they've previously made an arrangement with the indigenous population to do a trade of sorts. So these aliens are particularly simple creatures. They don't really have advanced technology or anything of that sort, but what they do have is a particularly interesting crop. They can derive a drug from this crop that benefits humanity in a certain way. I won't say too much more than that. So they really want this crop. But when they interact with this population that's previously agreed to the terms of this deal, they find them completely reticent to even talk to them. So something's going on there. Something's changed in the last 10 years. And once you find out what's going on, it's quite interesting. Okay, the next one is called Project Mastodon. And this is a time travel story. I'm not going to say too much about this one, other than the fact that it's about three college friends who somehow managed to bring about technology for time travel. And so they go back into the distant past. So just after the time of the dinosaurs, really, you got saber-toothed tigers and mastodons. So they've secured this piece of land, well, basically the whole world in the past, and they're trying to negotiate terms with the American government in the present time to secure this past world as their own country. Things don't go according to plan, primarily because the government don't actually believe they've done this. But when they do understand that they have achieved this technology, they have problems because these three men have disappeared. And so the story flits between the past, where the three men are, and the present in increasing increments of time. I won't say any more than that, but it's quite interesting. So the last story I'll talk about, there's only 5 stories in the short collection, is my particular favourite, and it's called Condition of Employment. Now, there will be a spoiler here. I'll tell you about, in a nutshell, what this story is all about, so you can skip this section if you don't want to know. But basically, this is about a young man who's an engineer on spaceships. And he seems to be from Mars. So there's another colony on Mars. And up to the moment we encounter him, he's been going backwards and forwards on various ships. But something's gone wrong along the way. And he's kind of living in fear. He doesn't like Earth. He doesn't like the quality of light, the fact that the sun is so bright and that there's green everywhere. He can't stand green. But for whatever reason, he's really scared about the possibility. He thinks he'll never be able to return to Mars. But eventually he plucks up the courage and he goes to the spaceport, and lo and behold, there's this chance that he can get aboard this next ship as a chief engineer. This ship, by all accounts, appears to be in a sorry state, and there's a very good chance it won't even make the voyage to Mars and he might die. But he is so hell-bent on going back to Mars that he agrees to it. Anyway, so they battle through this voyage, and by all accounts, he's having to stay up like 24/7 just to keep this thing afloat or keep it going through space. So upon landing on Mars, he gets rehabilitated, shall we say. So he's had mental conditioning to instill in his mind, as well as the other crew, I think, that they absolutely love the other planet that they want to go to. So spacefaring is such a perilous mission that they have to really make these crew members really want to go to the place they're going, else they know they would never get anyone to do the work of flying these craft. So yeah, that was quite interesting. Just short and sweet, but really, yeah, I really liked it. So finally, I'll just talk a little bit about the quality of the writing itself. As I've already said, I've never read anything by this author before, so I don't really have much to gauge his writing on, so to speak. And if I assume that these stories are from the 50s, they read very well indeed. I wouldn't necessarily have considered them to have been written then, perhaps in the 60s, late 60s, perhaps even the 70s. There's nothing major that would ground them within that particular era. This isn't hard science fiction at all. In fact, it reminded me quite heavily of the work of Philip K. Dick in some ways, where science fiction's used almost in a kind of surrealistic sense. There's an obvious delight here playing with these various aspects of science fiction tropes, if you will. The robots, the jaunts back in time, the flying through space, the encounters with quite odd aliens. But it's all done so really as ways to explore the human condition itself. Okay, there we are. That was my shambolic attempt at reviewing another book. I'm trying to get better at this, but I am struggling. Right, let's get the book down and give it a damn good thrashing. What will we be giving it today? Well, I thoroughly enjoyed reading these stories. It was quite different. I do love the work of Philip K. Dick, and it certainly reminded me of his work. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. So it's only just on the 4, but it really held me, and I really enjoyed the writing. And I will be pursuing more of Clifford Simak's work in the future. Now, I know a lot of you that are kind enough to watch my videos are very well read, and you're far more knowledgeable than I am. So if you could suggest another book to read by him, please do so. And I will devour it, I'm sure. Anyway, let's leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio!